We've heard the legend, but the real story is sharper, stranger, and darker than you could ever imagine. The year is 1492. Europe is racing for wealth, spices, and power. Across the ocean, these islands weren't empty, they were alive. Taino families farmed cassava, paddled canoes, and cooked by the shore, but on the horizon, strange sails were coming. And across the ocean, Europe craved luxury. Spices and silk were worth fortunes. Pepper could cost weeks of wages, so kings gambled on risky sea routes. Columbus was a mariner from Genoa, ambitious, stubborn, and obsessed with the sea. He'd grown up around ships like these, dreaming bigger than his city's horizon. Night after night, Columbus studied his maps and convinced himself of one thing: sail west and you'd reach Asia faster. The problem? His distance math was wildly optimistic. He pitched the plan for years, court to court, promising Asia in a straight line west. Most officials didn't buy it, and they sent him away again. Then finally, Spain said yes. Ferdinand and Isabella saw a chance to beat their rivals to the riches of Asia, and Columbus had just found his backers. Before he ever sailed, Columbus made sure the stakes were huge. He negotiated titles, authority, and a share of whatever wealth he brought back if he succeeded. Now came the gamble. 3 ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. Small by modern standards, but the risk was massive. Most weren't heroes, just working sailors chasing a paycheck. They loaded supplies and tried not to show the fear, because once they left shore, there was no turning back. Then the shoreline shrank behind them. Spain faded into mist, and all that remained was open water, nothing but ocean and whatever waited beyond it. Out in the Atlantic, the days blurred into weeks. Storms hit, sickness spread, and every night felt like a test, as the ocean didn't care if they made it home. Then the ocean changed again. They drifted into the Sargasso Sea, miles of floating seaweed, eerie and quiet, so thick it looked like the water could trap them. The longer it took, the more doubt spread below the deck. Voices dropped to whispers, eyes darted in the candlelight, and one dangerous idea kept returning: should we turn back? Columbus wouldn't back down. He pushed forward with the face of confidence, because if he turned around now, he'd return with nothing and ruin. Then the first real signs appeared: birds circling, and bits of drifting plants on the water. The crew started pointing and whispering. Land had to be close. Then one night, the watch swore they saw it. A faint glow on the horizon, like a fire. Then the fog shifted, and it vanished. October 12, 1492, land. After weeks of nothing but ocean, a bright shoreline rose out of the dawn. Columbus stepped onto the sand and claimed the island for Spain. He called it San Salvador, likely Guanahani, but he believed he'd reached Asia. They met the Taino, curious, cautious, and silent. No shared language, only gestures. Columbus wrote confidently in his logbook, convinced he was near Asia, but he didn't realize he'd entered a world he didn't understand. Almost immediately, Columbus asked about gold. This wasn't just exploration anymore. He was hunting for wealth, and he wanted to know where it came from. Columbus didn't stop. He pushed island to island through the Bahamas, mapping, renaming, and claiming for Spain. Then Cuba appeared, lush, massive, and completely unfamiliar. Columbus studied the coastline and convinced himself that this had to be the edge of Asia, maybe even China. Then they reached Hispaniola. The tone changed, supplies came ashore, tents went up, flags rose. This wasn't just a voyage anymore, it was the start of control. Fun fact, on Christmas night, 1492, the Santa Maria ran aground and wrecked. Lanterns flickered, waves slammed the hull, and suddenly Columbus had one less ship. With the Santa Maria gone, they used its timbers to build a fort, La Navidad. Columbus left men behind to hold the spot and sailed for Spain with only 2 ships. With 2 ships left, Columbus turned for Spain. Behind him, La Navidad shrank into the dusk, an outpost left an intense world with no guarantee it would survive. The return was brutal. Storms nearly swallowed the ships, and every lightning flash felt like the Atlantic wanted this story to end. Fun fact, Columbus reportedly sealed a letter in a barrel just in case he died at sea. It was a backup story if the ocean erased everything else. When Columbus returned, Spain erupted. Crowds cheered, banners flew. He brought proof of new lands, new people, and what they saw as enormous opportunity. In 1493, Spain didn't just send one small expedition, they sent a fleet. This time the goal wasn't just to explore, it was to build a colony and stay. When they returned to La Navidad, it was destroyed. Nothing left but ruins, smoke, and ash. It was the first warning this wouldn't be simple. So they built La Isabela, one of Spain's first towns in the Americas. But the heat was brutal, supplies ran thin, and the colony started to strain immediately. La Isabela started falling apart fast. People got sick, food ran short, and the heat crushed morale. Suddenly, the New World felt less like a promise and more like survival. Spanish settlers pressed for food and labor, while Taíno leaders pushed back to protect their communities. What started as negotiation quickly felt like a standoff. With the colony failing, Columbus pushed inland for gold. Spain wanted results, and the pressure drove them deeper into the jungle. Soon came tribute. Accounts describe people being forced to provide goods or labor under guard. What began as contact was turning into control. Columbus wasn't just an explorer anymore, he was the governor. And with power came backlash, strict rules, desperate decisions, and growing controversy on the island. The Spaniards started turning on each other. They blamed Columbus for shortages and harsh discipline because the colony wasn't bringing riches, it was bringing misery. By 1498, Columbus sailed again, older and more desperate. He was still chasing Asia and still chasing profit. Near Trinidad, he reached Orinoco's outflow, so vast it hinted at a huge land nearby. For a moment, his maps didn't feel big enough. Holding these unfamiliar foods, Columbus hesitated. He didn't feel like Asia, and for the first time, he wondered if it was something entirely new. Back on Hispaniola, the colony was boiling over. Shortages, anger, and open unrest in the streets. This wasn't the New World Spain imagined. It was chaos, and someone was going to take the blame. Shocking fact, Columbus was actually arrested. He was put in chains and sent back to Spain, a fallen governor instead of a hero. Columbus fought to regain his status, pleading his case back in Spain, but the damage was done. Officials listened with cold faces, and the trust he once had was gone. In 1502, Columbus sailed one last time. Spain didn't want stories anymore, they wanted results, and the sky over the fleet looked like a warning. Columbus warned a hurricane was coming, but the ships sailed anyway, and soon the wind snapped flags. Rain hammered the harbor, and disaster unfolded in real time. After the hurricane chaos, Columbus pushed along Central America's coast, hunting a passage to Asia. Every new shoreline looked like the way through until it didn't. After miles of coastline, Columbus fixated on one idea, a strait to Asia. He studied the maps like a puzzle, angrier each time the shortcut never appeared. By 1503, the voyage collapsed. Columbus's ships ended up stranded on Jamaica, and the crew built a beach camp at dusk because survival, not discovery, was the mission now. After months of waiting, rescue finally appeared on the horizon. Exhausted survivors ran to the shore waving cloth because at last they weren't alone. In 1506, Columbus died quietly. Far from the ocean he chased, and even at the end, he still believed his voyages had reached the edges of Asia. So the truth is, Columbus didn't discover an empty America, he reached the Caribbean, where millions had already lived. His voyages set off a chain reaction that reshaped the world. And that's the question we're left with. Was he an explorer, a symbol, or something darker? Drop your take below and comment what videos you would like to see next.